spirit. I don't see him. That guy didn't look like a very happy guy.
Yeah.
Looked kind of like an angry guy, right?
Yeah, and I wonder if, you know, as much as I like to give shit to like hip churches that are trying to be cool and
Right.
trying to reach the young people, I honestly don't think this guy is really trying to reach anyone.
Hi, this is Shelley Siegel, and you are watching Atheist Edge.
We had the apparently the Muslim woman come up, and we can't see a lot of detail on her face. It's sort of clouded over, but she's apparently wearing a headscarf, potentially a purple one, and she comes up and she's is face to face with one of the protesters.
Is a pedophile, and your face should be covered. No wonder Muslims want women to shut their mouth. You don't happen to have a bomb on you. You don't happen to have a pilot's license, do you? Do you have a pilot's license?
And he asks her, in really a very mean-spirited way, do you have a bomb? And he says, do you have a pilot's license? And of course, my ears perked up when he asked that. I'm like, yeah, I have one, but he wasn't talking to me.
Yeah,
he's talking to the person who he thinks might fly an airplane into a building or something. And something occurs to me. You'll hear frequently Christians argue that through the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, that Christians are the gifts of the Spirit, the kindness and the love and the joy and all the stuff out of Galatians 5, right? That Christians manifest better behavior because they are Christians. And so I look at this man and I have to wonder, is this the better behavior that Christians are talking about when they talk about the indwelling of the Spirit? I think if we asked the gentleman with the bullhorn, if he were a real Christian, he'd say, "You bet, you bet I am. Jesus."
He'd say he's more real than all the other Christians who are coddling the
fake
homosexuals.
Christians who are coddling, right? And yet, when I look there to try and see if any of the things that Paul says in Galatians that are the manifestations, the gifts of the Spirit, I don't see him. That guy didn't look like a very happy guy.
Yeah.
Looked kind of like an angry guy, right?
Yeah, and I wonder if, you know, as much as I like to give shit to like hip churches that are trying to be cool and
Right.
trying to reach the young people, I honestly don't think this guy is really trying to reach anyone.
Sick Muslims. Muslims are wicked. Mohammed,
Expected better from you, VJ.
Bad?
That's bad, man.
Why?
Why are you getting drawn into that? You're supposed to be the good guy. Why are you being bad for, VJ?
What?
Stop
That
it.
guy is going to go to heaven.
Stop pointing, VJ.
Do you
You're being
have
rude.
concern for that soul?
Yeah.
Do you want him to go to heaven or hell?
I don't believe in that concept.
Hey, you know what? You don't believe it.
Because he's presenting such a abhorrent image. He's getting in people's faces. He's shouting
Right.
at them. He's not doing anything to encourage people to believe him. I think he's in it for either for his own, because he's just a hateful person and has to get that out, or he just thinks he has an obligation to get the message out regardless of how he does it, regardless of if it affects anyone, and God's going to award him whether he's successful at it or
So
not.
I think you made a very interesting point. One of the things I love to tell people is that one of the least effective ways of achieving persuasion is through insult. If I wanted to come to you and say, you know, Chris, I think you should be a Dallas Cowboys fan because fucking Kansas City fans are dumbasses. Like, that probably wouldn't be a good.
Wouldn't go over well with
that would-
Kansas City.
Yeah,
fans.
that's not probably that's my wife is from Milwaukee, and her parents, my in-laws, are huge Packers fans, and so there's fun banter back and forth during holiday season because that's when football's being played. And if I were to try to persuade them of the superiority of the position of being a fan of America's team,
take it, yeah.
you know, insulting Green Bay Packers and say Brett
That's
Favre
not
would
what
be a
you're gonna
poor,
do, yeah.
right? That's not going to be very successful. When I look at this guy, it's exactly what you said. He's attacking the people who theoretically are the targets of his persuasive effort.
Yeah, but
This guy's been following us for 12 years, and he's a mockery of what we do.
Pretty funny, though.
That's outfit is, but his material's not very good.
If you're a homo, you're going to wind up looking like this. How much longer before he dies of AIDS? He's been looking sick every year. Get serious about God. All these
Yeah.
Now, not to sympathize with the guy too much, but think about what his challenge is. He has to find a way to palatably get across the message that who you are is abhorrent to God, to the point where you're going to burn forever just for being who, by all indications, who you are, and you can't really be otherwise. So you either have to suppress who you are to appease someone who you've never met and will never meet in this lifetime, or you're fucked eternally, basically. And I don't know, there's only so many coats of sugar you can put on that.
Yeah.
There's only so many things that you can fucking...
That's a really good point. I mean, you make a very persuasive point. You read Romans, Paul is writing to the church in Rome, a place he's never been, and he's kind of saying some awful things about the things that are happening in Rome, and he gets down to the sort of bottom half of the first chapter, big, long, flowery letter. And Paul doesn't have a word for homosexuality. That word isn't available to him. And so he describes the behavior of homosexuals.
How does he describe it?
And he spends the point is, he spends a couple of paragraphs describing the behavior rather than using the word homosexual. And he gets to the end, and he talks about he talks about a couple of other things too, gossiping and lying and so forth. But he says all of these things are worthy of death. So in Paul's world, in his universe, his version of Christianity, his understanding of the law and the scriptures, this is people who practice these behaviors are worthy of death. And so you have this fellow on the screen who's read this. He's steeped in this idea that homosexuality is iniquity. It's abhorrent in the eyes of God. It's exactly what you said. And he is trying to convey this message that if you don't stop what you're doing, you're worthy of death. And so he's chosen a very poor way of communicating this, in my opinion, as a sort of an outsider looking at how effective his persuasive technique might be. I think he's clearly not reaching his target audience, and so you've hit on something very important. Is it conceivable that the purpose of his exercise isn't really about persuasion at all? He's doing this because he feels like he has to go be a soldier for God.
Yeah, I remember going into New York City as a kid with a church group, and we passed by a street preacher who all he was doing was staying on his proverbial soapbox, maybe a little soapbox, I don't remember. All he was saying, he was waving his Bible and telling passersby, you don't get saved, you're going to hell. You don't get saved, you're going to hell. Over and over and over again. And maybe that's literally the case in his world, but does he think if he says it enough times, someone's going to be like, you got a good point there.
Is there a nice way to say that, right?
No, there isn't, really.
Yeah, to your point, right? You can't really sugarcoat that. What'd you make of the gay guy dressed up as the Pope?
We do this every year. And we only do stuff when they're doing their bullhorn, because then you can't ignore it.
Stop the hate. Stop your hate. You're as ugly on the inside as you're on the outside. Every one of you. Stop the hate. You're as ugly on the inside.
Did you hear the joke about the gay man, the atheist, and the Catholic priest that walked into a bar? Yeah, he ordered a beer.
Walked into a bar, right, and ordered a beer.
Yeah.
Just a little humor out there for you YouTubers.
Yeah, we don't normally do humor on this channel.
Yeah,
so.
But I'm funny. I'm hilarious.
Funny or anything.
Yeah, it's it takes all kinds. I'm not someone who mocks people. I prefer to have simple conversations, but sometimes it takes a little bit of mockery to get people to realize, hey, maybe what I'm doing doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense to people who didn't grow up the same way I did.
Right.
Don't have the same assumptions I did.
Right.
I don't know.
Live and let live. So on the screen we saw the religious approach to dealing with homosexuals. The humanist approach would be, you know what? You be you. I'm going to be me. Peace.
Yep. That's a good note to end on. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you later.
We fucked with her. Hey, I fuck with everyone.
You fuck with everybody, dude.
What she? I fuck.
She said,
I don't care what kind of plumbing she has in her trousers. I fuck with everybody.
Hey.
She said, "Yeah, you left it on the bedside table."
Hey,
I heard that.
We care. We just don't care.
Okay. It's a meme from
It's a
5
meme.
years ago.
5 years ago.
It's from Sweden.
All I know is that Honey Badger doesn't care. That's the only thing I know.
Oh, that's like 7 years
Yeah,
ago. You're
yeah.
behind the meme
I am
times.
way behind.
The more text someone has on their person or on their paraphernalia, the crazier they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever seen these cars that have like homemade bumper stickers and
Yeah.
signs and like take the letters that you put on your house, but to put them on their pickup or whatever?
There's a clear, direct relationship between verbosity, between word count and craziness.
Yeah, succinctly, people who want you to read them are crazy.
I've said to Christians before many times in person and in online social media forums that if you think that you're right, I would like for you to convince me. If you think that I'm wrong, I want you to persuade me.
Tell me what
then I'm
you
wrong.
think it is
I want to
that
be
I'm wrong.
convinced.